Hello, everyone. I welcome you to another episode of About Her today with the wonderful Leah. Leah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm
Yeah, I'm
really
excited.
excited. And we will talk today a bit about the mundane and the magic. And before we do, I would love for you to introduce yourself, share a bit of your journey, how you came to the place where you are now reading tarot and really having this wonderful down to earth spiritual energy. And then we dive into the mundane and the magic.
Yeah. So I actually have not been on a spiritual path for a very long time. I grew up in like a very Christian household and kind of pushed away from religion and spirituality for a long time because of that upbringing, and found my way back to it in the last probably 3 or 4 years, and really wholeheartedly dedicated myself to it. Like, I quit my full-time corporate job and am like full spiritual entrepreneur at this point. And so it's something that's really important to me. And I spend my whole day kind of really diving in and continuing to learn and grow. So I started out reading tarot for myself, and then I started reading tarot for other people. And then I really wanted to see what other unique ways tarot could be used. And so I started using it in conjunction with astrology to write horoscopes. And that has been my most fun project to date, for sure. So that body of work I call the transformation forecast. And that is like where I really dive in and use tarot, astrology. I also throw in some other divination methods like runes. Sometimes I use charms, all sorts of different things. So that has been really, really fun way to see all of the synchronicities and ways that things connect for us and show up in our realities. And so a big part of that work is how we can actually embody those energies to create change in our lives. And so what a big focus of that work is I use affirmations a lot. And then I also kind of created this thing I like to call magic in the mundane, which is like I give actual action that you can take that's in alignment with whatever is going on in your horoscope to kind of align you physically with that energy. Because I feel like manifestation is first in the astral. You think about it, you imagine it, and then you have to bring it into reality. And so taking action is how you bring it into reality. So it's kind of aligning those two things. And so that is a big part of why magic in the mundane, and like creating practical steps that you can take towards bringing your dream life into this reality that we live in here. So,
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And I so see the value in these practical steps, because I often feel like when we get or do a tarot reading, or when we look into the astrology, then it's like, oh, there's insight, and maybe there's explanations of character traits, of habits that we kind of get why they are the way they are, and even this okay, this is how I can transform, if you look from the sun to the rising sign or whatever. But there's subtle hints, but most often there's no practical advice. So people are left with insights, with theoretical wisdom, which is totally fine. But
yeah,
if you have this other component on top, where you say okay, and that's a really practical thing, like a homework that you can do in your daily life, that doesn't take you hours of sitting, but that can be a small thing to really embody that. I feel it's like you said, going from the astral to the 3D body, and I feel that that's exactly what it's doing. It's kind of translating these insights into day-to-day hustle and like really maybe even a chore. What have you looked at a chore?
Yeah.
But you now see like, oh, okay, there's something to it.
Yeah. And especially like I'm a mom, like I live in like the real 3D world. I have kids and a husband and I have to function in this world. And so I can't, as much as I love the like philosophy behind everything, and I really like go probably deeper than I should. I'm like really a nerd about digging into the philosophy and the thought processes and things, but I also have to like bring it back into the reality that I live in and make actual changes here and now to move my life forward in a way that's meaningful. So like how can I apply these philosophies and theories to my actual life? And so that's been a really fun and unique way to kind of work with the energies that are around us all the time.
Hmm. And I think especially as a mother, you still already said like, okay, you need to live in the 3D. And I think it's these little ones are our most amazing teachers because
Yeah.
your concept and your like theoretical wisdom could be like huge. But when it comes to a stressful situation and you haven't slept in days, really, and there's like crying and discussion and tantrums and whatever, this is when you really need your spiritual wisdom, but often we can't
Yeah.
access it because we haven't practiced. And so I think especially as parents or like in any other stressful situation, could be a job that is like kind of stressful, not to compare those two, but like there are
Yeah.
similarities. Um,
Yeah.
it's so important to have something where you think, okay, I don't have to think about it and think like, oh, I need to breathe 5 times. What do I do? But it's already in you. So I feel these like really little habits
Yeah.
that don't overwhelm your already overwhelmed system are much
Yeah.
easier to integrate and then much easier to like to recall in a specific moment that you really need them because you already
Yeah.
like have built some kind of familiarity around them.
Yeah. And I think like a big part of that too is working with affirmations in that way, because I think a lot of times where we get stuck is um, we'll decide theoretically that we want our reality to be this way. I feel like this comes into play a lot around abundance. People are like, you know, decide I'm going to live an abundant life. They've not felt abundant for a long time, and they decide through all of this theory and these beautiful ideas that they're going to live an abundant life. And I think a lot of times the university then gives us these opportunities to um, kind of prove in a way. I don't like prove, but like to show that we actually are abundant. But I think a lot of times it'll kind of come back where you're like, oh, am I? It makes you kind of second guess. And so that's where these like affirmations and embodiment practices come into play, because you will have to keep confirming. The universe will keep presenting you with opportunities to kind of turn back or to continue forward. And my goal is to always continue forward. I want to keep learning and growing. And so I'm always trying to um, say yes and move towards the opportunities that the universe presents. But I know that it's like, it took me a while to get to that point because sometimes it will make you second guess and you'll kind of go back. And so a lot of times with these affirmations and actions that I put together, it's like, okay, when I'm looking at your horoscope and what's going to come up for you, you may be presented with things like where you're going to feel really pressed to make hard and fast decisions on something in your life. And then when those things happen, the action is to pause and slow down and remind yourself that you don't have to be rushed. There is no rush. Many of the things in our lives that we feel pressure to rush into are not actually needed to be rushed into. And so once you have that kind of solution and a way to reframe that situation, it allows you to do it so much more seamlessly in the moment. Because otherwise you would be in that moment and you're feeling pressured and rushed and you just kind of go along with it. But because now you've read this horoscope, or you listen to this horoscope where you're like, hey, you're going to come up against this. Here are some practical actions and an affirmation that you can do. It gives you that tool in your toolbox to be able to move forward in a better way and make a better choice in the moment, which I think is like so important. So it appears in a lot of different ways. It's very useful and functional, and I think that that's like my favorite part. So yeah.
I agree on that, because I feel like what is scaring us humans the most is like the unknown. And if you don't know what happens or how you react, and like maybe your horoscope says like when you're 35 this big thing will happen, and you think, God, what is it? How should I handle it? Whatever. That can create a lot of like unsafety, and you still don't know how to respond to it rather than react. But if you like kind of have this heads up and you already know a bit of what you could do, what it could be, how you can, it's almost like preparing a speech and already like, having it talk through a few times so that you're kind of familiar with the energy. I feel that what you just described is giving to people, that you really have a bit of a more certainty and trust in what it is. How can I react? How can I overcome this? Am I like strong enough? There's so many things popping up. And about the affirmations, I'm really curious because I love them too. But I found that there are moments where, depending on where you are on your journey, affirmations are really like, there's a lot of tension around them when the belief system is really contradicting them. So the moment I like say, for example, I don't know, I'm financially abundant, and at that moment I'm broke, then like there's this inner voice in my head saying, you're not financially abundant, you're broke. So there's this contradicting belief. So if you already like are open and have resolved some of these issues, then wonderful. But if you haven't, would you use like, how do you navigate your client through this? Would you use tarot or like any other modality to like kind of softening that resistance that sometimes the inner belief brings up?
Yeah, I think tarot is a great tool because my experience has been that literally just bringing awareness to the block is like the most important step. Because if you don't have awareness of what is going on within you, then you can't do anything to fix it. This pattern will just keep repeating and you'll be unaware that this pattern is repeating. But I think tarot is such a great reflective tool, and it helps you to really be able to kind of see what's going on and pull out these patterns so that you can change them, transform them, kind of move them around. Because I've felt, at least in my experience, is that once I bring awareness to a block, the universe kind of gives me these opportunities to change it and to shift it. And I always feel like once I make the first step to say, okay, I'm aware of this, I see how this pattern is showing up in my life negatively, and I want to work to shift it, the universe always comes in and kind of supports the rest of the process of actually getting that block moved. So really, I think awareness is so powerful. And I know it sounds so simple, but I feel like for most of my life, I was unaware of a lot of things that I had been holding on to, belief systems and thought processes and the way that I would speak to myself. And as soon as I started bringing awareness to these things, my life like shifted dramatically. And so I really think that awareness is the key piece to kind of start you forward. I feel like the universe is always here to support us, and kind of like a mom in ways where they want you to like be the best you that you can be.
Mhm.
But it's not always the easiest. They have to wait for you to be ready to do that. So when you signal readiness through awareness, then they're like, okay, great, let's do this, and kind of help. So I
Oh,
really think that that's so important.
yes, I 100% agree on like the benevolence of the universe, and
Yeah.
even becoming aware of that can like shift your whole life completely. But what I feel with the awareness, it's so simple, and it's like maybe one of the most potent tools we have. Still, the society that we live in is so used to like really harsh outside entertainment like TV
Yeah.
or whatever. There's like so much that's bombarding us all day that
All
we
day.
often don't allow ourselves, or our body is not even anymore trained to like really see and feel the subtle energies. And awareness is such a subtle energy. But when you like descend down and like decondition from all this outside entertainment, have learned to look within, you can really grasp like how much more these subtle things that you think like, oh, well, I'm aware of that. What should I do
Hmm.
with it? Transforms
Hmm.
to, oh, awareness changed everything. So both is true in kind of way, depending on where you stand. And I love that you touched on the universe as a mother, because I think it's such a beautiful way to imagine it. And especially in situations where we feel overwhelmed, frustrated, drained, if we can call back that picture of like it's a loving, benevolent entity that is always here to support us, and that, yeah, for the hundredth time would help us get up because we haven't learned to walk, or pick up that thing that we would like to have and hold it here and say like, yeah, of course, here it is again.
Yeah.
But I feel we kind of have, at least in the Western cultures, kind of taken on the belief that we have to struggle through everything, and we need to like, we alone, fighting alone against life,
Yeah.
basically. And it's not
Yeah.
the case, but you need the awareness to come back to that you are not alone and that you are always supported. And it's a hard thing to swallow for someone who has tried to be super self-dependent their whole lives. So
Yes.
there's the way down. I feel it's not so much about ascension; it's more about like descending to the self and remembering, which is sometimes not that easy
Yeah.
to like allow.
Yes, for sure. And I think that um one of the other big tools that I use personally is like my relationships as a mirror.
Um,
Um because I do feel like our relationships serve kind of that purpose in our lives, because I think it helped me bring awareness to some of those patterns. Like I did think um life had to be hard work. That is a belief that I held for a really long time, and I couldn't see that I was doing that until I started looking around me at my family members. Like my dad has always been this like rough and gruff, like construction type of guy, always putting in like the grind and the hard effort. And he like just believes that that's the way that life is, and you just have to like put your nose to the grindstone and trudge through. And I didn't realize to the amount that I was holding on to that as well, inherently learned from growing up around him. And then now seeing it as an adult, it helped me bring awareness to I was holding on to that. Um, and finding ways to kind of release that belief from my life, because I do think that life can be easy and life can be fun and it can be this beautiful gift, but it is, I think, especially Western culture and the society that we've built around capitalism, it doesn't make it easy to remember that life doesn't have to be so hard and so difficult. And so that's definitely a big block that I see a lot around, that people have.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. There's so much like hustle, hustle, hustle culture still. I feel it's like it's loosening up a bit, but still it's like super big. And if you
Mhm.
look at it, you said it, we've seen it in our caregivers, our whole family. It's not even just in our lives. We could talk past lives or generational patterns in this
Absolutely.
patriarchal society that we live in that told us for hundreds of years, like, we need to really work hard to make life kind of worth living and to like really move forward and sell that stuff and build that thing and whatever we collectively felt we need to do. And there's no judgment around it, but I feel like the shift we're in right now to come back to like, oh, is this really worth it? And how can I like soften it up? And oh, maybe even realizing that when you soften up, when you have kind of released that belief that only hard work can bring you quote unquote success, whatever that means to you, that things can maybe come easier. They can come with less effort, with maybe even less work time, with more joy. And this, like, I feel like this paradigm of you can have it all is starting to enter in. And this, like, we need to like be okay with what we have and kind of be satisfied with the little we have and don't reach for more because that would be selfish. That's slowly dissolving, which is so wonderful for me personally, because I always said, like, I want to have it all and I want it now. And everyone looked at me annoyed and said, oh my God, don't be so naive. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And now it's finally coming to fruition. And I feel it's our birthright to want that and to not need to wait in line until we're 65 and can't stop the hustle, because then we've hustled for however long, 40 years. We've taught our kids the same, and then we kind of should all of a sudden enjoy doing nothing. That's really hard transition. So I love that we're in that right now, and that we can support ourselves with affirmations, with tarot, with awareness, with like really connecting with ourselves instead of like externalizing everything.
Yeah. And I think that has been like one of my biggest mindset shifts too, is that I just was really pushing for the outcome. Like, I want to get to the end. I want to get to like where I have all the things and can do all the things that I want to do. And, you know, I think that is also a symptom of what we've talked about, like this busyness culture and this hustle culture is like, you're working to try to get to this end point that you want to be at. But there is so much happiness and so much joy that can be found along the way. And by tapping into that, you actually get to this end point faster. And so that has been one of the hardest ones for me to break from, because I have a lot of, like, I have Mars in Aries. So I'm like really, really driven, and like passionate about moving forward. And one of the things that like my guides and ancestors have been working with me on is really like, Leah, you need to enjoy the present and the now, and like really just be happy along the journey, because you're going to miss this stage that you're in your life. And it's like that on every stage. They're like, you're going to miss this one. You're going to miss this one. I promise you. And so really just connecting with all of the beautiful things that we have around us throughout the path towards having the life that we want to live. I actually find myself more living the life I want to live now, without all of the dream things in the end, because it's like I'm always living the life that I want to have through different stages. So that has been like a huge mindset shift, is like, yeah, it's okay to want more, and it's okay to kind of continue driving forward, but also find ways to be happy now. And it makes the whole process a whole lot more fun. And so that has been a huge shift that I've had to make personally.
I had that too. I know what you're talking about. And one of my mentors summed that up really well. When I heard it first, I wasn't really grasping it fully, but over time, it really came to me. He said, like, always try to be happy, but never be satisfied. And that really touched deeply into my generational pattern of like, you need to be satisfied with what you have and you don't reach for more and whatever. And if you will be struggle and, whatever, working through that and really allowing the present moment to be full of joy and ease, regardless of where you want to go. Not just like trying to get as fast as you can, because you wouldn't be faster, even though you will hustle. And also you miss so many things on the way. So I love the analogy of like, if you go travel from one side of the country to another, for example, you know where you want to go. That's beautiful. That's your goal. And you'll get there. But if you like really go as fast as you can, yeah, maybe you can, but you also be stressed. There is more danger. There is less enjoying the nature, the cities that you go through, whatever you see. You wouldn't take a coffee break. You wouldn't like really enjoy life, feel the air, talk to some people. So that all can be part of the journey, but you wouldn't be there much faster, though you would have missed a lot of beautiful things that the Kabbalists call it like collecting the light. And I think that's really beautiful, because sometimes it's little tiny things that we need to kind of become aware of, and not just going from point A to point B and then that's it.
Yeah, and I think part of like those little things along the way that feel like side quests of sorts, where you're like kind of taken away from your path, actually have like so much growth and beauty available in them, and they make that end goal picture so much brighter, because you find this other unique jewel along your path, and then you can enjoy this other piece even more. And so I think it's like some things you don't realize that you want until you have them. And that's part of what going through the experience of the journey brings, is kind of opening yourself up to these beautiful surprises and synchronicities and different ways of growth that you never knew that you wanted. And so that has been the biggest gift for me in kind of trusting my journey, and not rushing to the end goal, is finding these cool little pockets or meeting these unique people, and things that have really just added so much value to my path and my journey and my growth as a human. So I think that's really important.
Yes, it is. And it's something that we can do individually and collectively. And again, when you just talked, I thought like, yeah, well, that's the best description about like magic in the mundane, how we started, because it's all these little things, all these conversations, all these wonderful moments, like sitting in the sun, enjoying the sun, even for a few moments. These can bring us so much and like recharge ourselves so much. So why deplete ourselves? It's actually, if you look at it, this whole exhaustion game that we're collectively playing, it's not making much sense, but it's a program. We kind of run with it. And maybe somewhere in our life we think like, what, do I really want to do that still? And then we come out of it. But the beauty is like, if you see, coming back to this like grounded spirituality, if you learn to see, to be present in your day and really see the magic there, see the abundance there. Nature is abundant. If you hear it first, you think like, oh my God, is that cheesy? What should I do with it? But like the more you work with it, it's really a beautiful mirror, as everything is, as you said before. And we can really learn to anchor in these beautiful little moments in the day. I feel it's getting so much more rich, so much more full of experiences and wisdom. And that also can help us like to really reach the goal we want to go. It's not of not having a goal. It's more like, how are you feeling on the way there? Are you like really depleted of energy, exhausted, frustrated, or do you enjoy? Before Connection Book Off, we were talking about presence and how much we can learn to enjoy our lives when we learn to like really see these little things, these little glimmers, how people call them these days, which I think is really nice. And yeah, I love that you're doing the magic and the mundane with it. So what I've realized is that you're doing it for each sign and then
Mhm.
giving a specific kind of action step on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I do a horoscope for each sign. I do it at the start of every astrological season. So I would
Uh-huh.
do one for all of Aquarius season, but then I also do them for every new moon, full moon, or eclipse.
Wow,
And
amazing.
so it gives you kind of this extra
Yeah.
flavor and helps you kind of like live in your rhythm. I found that living with a more lunar rhythm makes a lot more sense for me and my life flows a lot smoother. So I like basing my horoscopes around that timing. Um, but yeah, I do a different horoscope for every single sign. And so because where whatever's going on shows up for you will be different um, for every single person. And so it's just kind of based on um, setting that up for every sign. And then that way you can better align the action with wherever that's showing up in your chart, which I think really helps the overall intention because you're aligning it with where it's showing up for you. And so you have the most traction to actually make change because it's
Mhm.
showing up at a time where it's visible to you, whatever this pattern or um, thing may be, is it's showing up visibly in your life because of the where the astrology is of the moment. And so I think it actually gives you the traction that you need to actually actualize those changes and things that you want to have happen for you. So that's been really powerful for me.
I imagine. And also like the repetition, if you do that often and people like really connect to it often, I think you do it weekly, am I right?
I just do the one big one for the season and then every new moon and full moon. So
Mhm.
sometimes it comes out like every week and then there may be like a week in between the third one, but it's typically about every week um based on the cadence of that. And sometimes I'll do special ones too for like Mercury retrograde or a bigger transit that really has an impact that we notice. I think
Yeah.
Mercury is one of those ones that we notice a lot because it's so active in our day, like our communication and the way that we operate in the world.
True.
So, especially we're all so much on technology, I think a lot of us notice when Mercury retrograde happens. So I do special ones for those kind of activities where things are really going to be noticeable for people to take action on and kind of be able to shift their mindset around.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that the more often people can really connect into it, and as you say, it's almost weekly, like depending on what is happening um in the stars, there's a lot of like accountability, I imagine, to like really say like, okay, I'm gonna check in and maybe I followed the homework for that week. Maybe I've
Mhm.
like worked on whatever affirmation it was or whatever like really spark you could collect, or maybe not, but there's like this regularity that I think is really powerful for people to connect to. And if we are able to do that without judgment of whether we have done or not done what we've said we do,
Mhm.
there's a lot of power in, again, the awareness of what is happening and what could be an explanation for how you behave, how you feel, how everything is unfolding.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the universe also will always meet us where we are. And so one thing that I've noticed is that, things will cycle back. Eventually, you'll get another opportunity. If you didn't do the homework the first time, you'll get another opportunity. The universe keeps kind of bringing things back into our focus. And even if you did do the homework last time, it may come back around in another cycle for you to even level up even more and break down another part of this wall that you didn't know existed. And so I think that that's a really beautiful part of our universe being cyclical, is that there's no like lost opportunity. And I know that this society really beats us down over that. And like, you're going to miss this opportunity. You have to do it now. You have to, do all these things. But I actually think that that's like one of the most beautiful parts of the universe is that it is cyclical. And if you're not ready for whatever change is being put in front of you at that time, the universe will bring it back for you and you'll be able to make it the next time and you'll be more ready and better prepared to be able to handle it. So I do think that that's a beautiful part of it. But yeah, these things also really build on each other. And so if you're consistent and you do put in the work and the effort to kind of work through these patterns and these changes, it really up-levels your life very quickly. It's very surprising to see how such small little changes grow into this huge shift. But there was a book that I read about it, but it was like, 1% change each day. It eventually you hit this past this plateau and you just kind of shoot forward. But because you were putting in 1% each day, it maybe didn't feel like a lot, but then all of a sudden you hit this upward slope and you're like, whoa, my life just changed. I feel like that's the power of these like practical changes is like one day you look around and you're like, holy cow, I am living in my dream. Like, this is beautiful. I worked really hard for this.
Wow.
And like, I put in this effort to do these great things for myself, and now I get to kind of reap those rewards. So I think that that's really powerful and fun to look back and see too.
I feel, and in hindsight, it's often more easy to be proud of ourselves for all the little things we've done. But at the moment, because we're so impatient, because we maybe have procrastinated for such a long time on all the things we wanted to do, but like haven't been courageous enough or haven't been ready enough, then we then try to make up that time that we've lost, quote unquote, by doing massive action. And then because we haven't integrated, because the nervous system is like totally overwhelmed, it's not sticking. And what you've said with these small habits, I feel it's it's a really beautiful way when we get to convince ourselves to do it that way, because you're not overloading yourself, you're not triggering your fight, flight, freeze response, because it's just a little thing, and the little thing the body normally can't handle much more easy, but the progress is still like huge. And it's more the logical mind, I feel, that tries to convince you to like go into a massive action once maybe you haven't meditated for half a year, but you would like to. And so you try to do it 3 hours a day instead of like 5 minutes to make it a habit that you can really fit into your day. And I feel there's lots of like trust involved when we come to the small things that we accumulate over time and see this, oh my God, how much have I changed moment quite quickly after, because we're not so much in control. There's always the possibility of like forgetting what we want to do or not doing it or falling off the train or however you want to call it. And so there's a lot of trust involved. And we come back to the picture of the universe as like the loving mother that like always helps you up when you fall, and always like only gives you what you can handle. And the moment we can embrace that trust, I feel it's becoming much more easy to like really embody these tiny little steps and work with what we have and be proud of the small steps that we have made, instead of like trying to push ourselves again through the hustle culture into something we are maybe not ready for, that it's not meant for us in that moment.
Yeah. And I think too that what you said about integration is so important. It's such an important aspect to transformation and change. Because if you don't give yourself time, your nervous system time to kind of process these changes that you've made, then you will kind of revert back to those original actions because your nervous system hasn't adjusted fully. So I do think that the downtime is a little bit less when you're able to do these things in a really practical, simple way. rather than just like all of a sudden I'm going to change my entire life and I'm going to change my whole diet and I'm going to shift all of this. And it's like, okay, well, let's start with maybe instead of a donut for breakfast, I'm going to have eggs. Just these like smaller shifts help us kind of grow in a more realistic way that actually can stay and last. Whereas like these big, ginormous, like I'm going to change my whole diet and I'm just going to only eat vegetables and I'm going to cut out all the sugar and I'm going to cut out all this all at one time. A lot of times people struggle with that because it's such a massive change. It takes a lot on our bodies to be able to take and to implement. And so a lot of times people will backslide. But when you do it in this incremental way, that's how you create like real lasting change and a really strong foundation for what you want to build in your life to actually last and hold the test of time. At least that's been my experience with it. So
I 100% agree. I feel sometimes the self-image hasn't caught up to the actions we so rushingly took, and therefore it's like we need to kind of snap back because that's our like default setting. And the change of the self-image is so much easier, deeper, profound if we do the small things, if we like really commit to the affirmation of the day or of the week for that time being, and really integrating that and embracing these small changes rather than doing the whole big thing, which will come to fruition anyways.
Yes.
But yeah.
But a lot easier on your body and yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you so much for that. That is like, I feel it's so more tangible to like really see the magic in these little things, and to like have the listeners be inspired to just take a few moments each day to just see like where could the universe give me that sign, where could me to pick up on that, because I love that so much. Where is the universe coming back to me in this thing that I think I missed? You had a wonderful point there, I feel, because we're made to believe that we're missing out on things all the time, and there's like this big anxiety and fear around missing out on anything, but it's not actually true, because what is meant for you, you cannot miss it.
Right.
And if you kind of missed it, it'll come back later in a different cloak, in a different form, when you're more ready. Yeah. And this also ties back into the cyclical universe that you described earlier, because so often people say like, oh, why is this happening again? I've been through it. I've already like resolved it. And then it comes back, but that's no sign of you kind of doing something wrong. It's more of a sign that you have kind of evolved spirally, and you look at whatever you need to look at from a different perspective. And that's actually like, if you want to do good and bad, then it's a good sign. But normally it's perceived as something that is 2 steps back, instead of saying like, oh no, it's 1 level up. It's a different way of measuring. And it can only be good because it comes from a benevolent universe. So there's actually, if you embrace that fully, there's no doubt in whatever happens to you.
Right. Yeah, it's magical the way the universe works. And I think part of it too is sometimes it's like we miss out on things in a protective way. Too, I think the universe will really like redirect us from experiences that are not going to turn out the way that we want them to, or is good for our growth and our health. And so I love that about the universe as well, is like it just, the universe is so abundant. There are so many opportunities, and it's up to us to kind of be present in order to see all of the opportunities available to us and the ways that we can be surprised and kind of enjoy these little unique things that the universe will kind of put on our paths. So I love that.
we could actually stop fighting and stop resisting if we can embrace that fully
Yes.
because then everything is good and everything's coming at the right timing. So there's no need to rush, to fight, to procrastinate, to whatever. Time becomes that really that illusion.
Yeah.
How we say, the moment we can really embrace that all is fine the way it is, and that again is one of these things that sounds so cheesy, but still there's a value in it if you're like open enough to embrace it and aware enough to see like where maybe like collecting. I love collecting evidence for these kinds of things, to see like where that happen in my life today, where I can find proof of this. I know me too. I don't like the word proof, but sometimes there's no better one.
Yeah.
So where can we really make ourselves believe that this is real, so that we can strengthen this new belief, or belief that hasn't fully settled in, that there actually is no rush, there actually is nowhere to go, because we are always on the perfect place.
Yeah. And I do think we need reminders. We need those like confirmations that we're on the right path, and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're moving forward and learning and growing, and like you know, I'll still get caught up sometimes, and the universe will remind me like, slow down, it's okay. And so I'll be like, okay, sorry. Back on track, and kind of pull myself back. But yeah, it's a natural thing to kind of get pulled back into the original mindset. And I think the important thing is to not beat yourself up about that, and really just be like, oh, now I see where I'm still getting pulled into that mindset, and then you can shift it. So
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of this fun back and forth where we're just figuring things out and learning and growing all the time. So, make it an adventure, have fun with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I feel the more we can embrace the fun and ditch judgment on it, really say like, okay, well, I kind of fall back. Yeah. Oh, there's my limiting belief again. And you just are the observer. It's much more easy said than done. Then that alone can bring you the awareness we started with today, to initiate change, or rather this awareness already initiated the change that you seeked for, but it came kind of naturally, or it came at the place and time where you could really handle it, where you can embrace it. So it's all about, I feel like, a dance between not forcing but ordering what you want, and then allowing the universe to like bring it to you in whatever form it wants to bring it to you. And that could be like so unexpected or so expected, but it's like for you to always adjust. Yeah. It's like, okay, that's there, that could be this, and here I felt back, but it doesn't matter. So I'm trying to try different, not giving up.
Yeah, that is like one of the things that I constantly repeat to myself, is like, I'm never going to give up on my journey. I am going to keep going no matter what. And that is something that I've been really dedicated to, because I do think that the universe helps you prepare for these things too. When you ask for big things, which, I'm kind of a dreamer. So some of my visions for my life are very large and grand. But when you ask for these big things, the universe will bring them to you, but it's going to put you through the growth process that you need to be able to hold them, and keep them. And so, part of what I have to remember as I go through my journey is that I'm being prepared to have that type of future for myself. And so everything that the universe is putting me through now is helping me to get to the point where I actually get to enjoy that and keep it and have it. And it's not going to be one little soundbite of success where I have success for, a hot minute, a year, and then all of a sudden it's like taken away from me. It's going to be long lasting, and it's going to be, this kind of permanent wealth that surrounds me in all ways. And so when you ask for big things like that, you have to be open to how the universe kind of brings you to that point as well. So I think that that's a big piece of it.
Agreed. So many people, I feel, out of exactly that reason, don't even dare to dream big because they fear that A, maybe it's not within reach and they kind of like get laughed at. But I think the even more big thing is like, oh, I need to grow very much for like really being that person who can hold that. And we have that subconsciously. And it's like, can I? Can I not doubting ourselves thing, which really holds so many of us back from dreaming big, from really claiming, okay, that's what I want to be. I want to be CEO of that big company. I want to like earn that, whatever. It doesn't matter. But it's like, who do I need to become to like being able to hold that? And like you said, not just for a minute, but for long. And that involves a lot of like growing in confidence, maybe doing things that have been hard for you in your history, and like really learning to shift that self-image and believing in yourself as much as you believe in the universe, maybe, and like really like having to merge those two to create this actually new version of yourself that you can become. Because if it's your desire, if it's in you, I think it's for you. That's one of my deep beliefs that I have worked a long time to like really believe. But it's a journey to always embrace and remember, and like yeah, well, so it's really a valid thing to dream that big. It's not just dreaming, it's really like a vision.
And it absolutely can happen. I've seen it happen for people. So I know that it's real and it can. And that's the thing that keeps me going, is knowing that it is possible without a shadow of a doubt, and just really knowing that when I voice what I want to the universe will provide it to me in the way that it can. And so it's just about trusting the process and trusting the journey, and like they will get you to where you need to be to have that thing. And so don't be intimidated by the bigness of it, because I promise you, they will lead you through the steps to get you there. There are things that I thought were too big for me to have a year ago that I now have, and I didn't think it was possible for me to have that a year ago, and I have it now because I trusted the process and let myself be led through these changes and things that I had to make in my life. I made some radical shifts, but all through this practical magic type of steps, these small things that you can't really see how they get you to your end goal until you get there, and you're like, oh, that's why I had to go through that thing. And then it all makes sense because you're at the end. So it's really like trusting that process, that it will get you there and you will get to what you need to have. So yeah, I think that's a big part of it.
Where like really these tools that you use come in perfectly, I think, because like tarot, for example, it's a really beautiful tool to learn to trust not only yourself but the universe at large, and just see like certain correlations and synchronicities in a way that you see like, oh, okay, that could possibly be that, aha moment you just talked about, when you look back and think like, okay, that's why I needed to go through this, I don't know, really horrible breakup, because now I've met the person that I really want to be with. At the moment it might be like really not making sense, but in hindsight it does. And I feel with certain tools we can kind of get that. We started with that before, that certainty that everything's working out, and that it's just our limited mind not perceiving everything that is going on, and we have no idea where the next steps are, but they are there. So it's really about like honoring that trust and really building that trust that is most required maybe to grow on our journey in a way that is flowing, that is also maybe not effortless always, but that is flowing, that is not only hustle, hustle, hustle. So there's lots of value in these small things. It's like how we can, I think, summarize this is like really looking at the magic in the small things, at the magic in the small habits and the small like experiences, and kind of like gathering all these together to form that picture of trust in the whole thing and in yourself. And from there, like really having a more confident approach to life.
Yeah, I think that all that we have to kind of like, I feel like we take on a lot of responsibility for having to kind of actualize these dreams all by ourselves too. And I think that that's where a lot of the fear comes in. But I think, the universe will meet you at the point of action. You have to take the first step towards whatever it is, and the universe will meet you there and kind of help hold your hand forward. And so just trusting in that, having that faith is what will ultimately lead you where you want to go. And yes, it's hard, and you may feel like there's so much pressure and you have to figure out, how to get from point A to point B right now. But you actually don't. You just have to figure out what's the first step to get from point A to point B, and then the rest of the path will kind of begin to unfold for you one step at a time, and just kind of trusting that. So it's definitely scary. I have a lot of Virgo placements in my chart, and so I hold on to control a lot. I want to be in control of it's like this perfectionist kind of mindset, and so that is one of the things that I've really had to like let go of, holding on to all of the control and letting the universe kind of take the wheel and showing me the path forward, because a lot of times I get there a lot easier the way the universe leads me than what I would have thought the path needed to be. So
a Virgo shadow, I have that too. I have my sun and moon in Virgo, so I totally know what you're speaking about.
My daughter.
I
think
thank you
hiding
so
behind
much.
me now.
So sweet. I know it's like early morning, you need to go. I thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and your energy, and I really loved the conversation we had today. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
I will link
too.
your Instagram in the captions, and so people can find you and discover more of your magic when they're ready.
Yeah. Instagram is the best place for me. My website, but that is my main things through there now. So yeah, that sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you, my dear. Have a beautiful, beautiful day, and we speak very soon.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
Bye.
Bye.